Today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about redefining professional success. And this is going to be a two-part episode. First, on today's episode, we are going to talk about traps that we can fall into that lead to professional burnout. Stay tuned. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Grow RDH podcast. My name is Katie, I'm your host. I'm a dental hygienist from South Dakota, and on this podcast we talk all things dental hygiene and professional growth, personal journeys. And so this is going to be a two-part episode. If you're listening to this one first, you got it. You are on the right episode first. But I just wanted to give a little bit of a personal backstory here. I am going to be gone here soon. If you are a dental hygienist who follows the ADHA at all, you know that our annual session is coming up in October. It is currently September 24th. So I wanted to record a two-part episode all at once so that way I could edit, get it posted, and then leave for Long Beach and just kind of forget about the podcast for a little while. I am excited to tell you I get to speak out there, and of course they lined up my speaking time as the same time as Anna Pattinson, so I am sure that I'm probably not going to have the best turnout because heck, I even want to go to Anna Pattinson. I'd rather listen to Anna Pattinson than me. But yeah, so I'm speaking Sunday at 2:30, and I'm speaking about ACEs and trauma-informed care, and it's a workshop. So it's really going to be a fun time. There's role playing. If you're going to ADHA, please reach out. I would love to meet you in person. We could even record a couple of podcast episodes out in Long Beach. If you're going to be out there and you want to do something in person, hit me up, give me an email. It's katie@growrdh.org, or send me a DM. I would love to connect with you out in Long Beach. Anyway, long story short, this episode is going to be split into two parts. And on this first part, we are going to talk about traps that can lead us into professional burnout. Not necessarily they cause professional burnout, right? We got to be careful about how we say, causation. However, these are some of the things that we just, through the routine of our week or our day even, we fall into these traps, and a lot of the times it can be comparison related. And so I want to talk about some of these traps just to kind of highlight them. Sometimes if we highlight the problem, it doesn't become as much of a problem because we're more aware of it. And then next week, we're going to talk about how we can combat those traps, how we can redefine our professional success so that way we go to work and we leave satisfied every single time, not always feeling drained or feeling a lack of joy in our profession, right? We chose this profession. We want to be doing this profession for years and years and find fulfillment in it, right? So part one is the traps that lead to burnout. And then part two is redefining success for yourself. So we're just going to get started with the traps, of course. So the first trap that we are going to talk about is speed gets stressful, right? We are constantly running behind. We are constantly waiting for an exam. We are constantly waiting for a late patient to show up. We are constantly looking at production. A lot of hygienists have income that is somewhat based on production, whether or not that's access to bonuses or if that changes your hourly rate. There are many hygienists that are working on production, which makes the speed of our procedures a constant worry, right? We're constantly feeling like we can get behind. For us, that can lead to a lot of pressure. And hopefully this is resonating with you, but what can happen is that when you are constantly in this time crunch, you are only thinking about things that is going to get you to the end zone faster. This can be turning over ops too quickly. This can be completing scaling too quickly. Maybe you're not as thorough as you once used to be because you're constantly feeling rushed. It can also lead to the patient feeling disconnected from you, right? If we are constantly focused on the production and or the procedures that are getting done, right? We have to get you out of the chair so I can turn the chair over and then get another patient in the chair. This is a constant thing, and it's something we all struggle with. But I think it's important to think about what happens because of this, right? Things can start to slip. Infection control can start to slip. Your instrumentation skills can start to slip, literally slip, right? The instrument could slip and you could cause tissue trauma, or just your lack of maybe exploring or probing thoroughly and really assessing the gingival margins correctly. It can also mean just literally burning yourself out, right? And that's what we want to avoid. We have to value our time in such a way that we are protecting our professional career long term. The second trap that I want to talk about is production. This is kind of related to speed, right? Because if you are on production, you are constantly worried about how many procedures you're doing. Now, I know that this is really important to a lot of you, especially if you rely on specific income numbers to meet production. But the reason I want to talk about this, and I just want to caution you, is because what tends to happen, and this has happened to me because I've worked for a production-based office. I didn't last long, and it's happened to colleagues of mine, is that what you start to do is you start to look at your time and your value as what you are worth to your dental office. If you only equate your personal value to what you can produce in the dental chair for your job, and this occurs daily, weekly, monthly, you are starting to lose sight of what you are as a person and what you bring in terms of value to others, to the workplace, to the culture of the workplace. This can lead to two different outcomes, really. One, it can lead to you feeling replaceable. You're just a number. You feel like you have to perform. And you could easily be replaced by a new grad who may be faster. It can also create a sense of devaluing yourself, right? As a human. If you feel like you're only a number, you're going to start performing and treating and talking to yourself like you're just a number. And you're not. You are a person of value. And I want you to really think about what role you see yourself playing in your office. And I want you to start listening to how you talk to yourself. Don't dehumanize yourself just because you're in the rat race of the dental office trying to just keep up and trying to produce for your income and for their bottom line. The third trap that we can fall into is projecting patient outcomes to ourselves, right? One thing that I've learned in therapy is that you can only control what you can control, right? And that sounds silly. But how frustrating is it to educate and educate and educate and have a patient come back month after perio maintenance and have the same outcome? And how often does that happen before we start internalizing those outcomes as failures for us, right? What we have to remember is that patient choices are ultimately their responsibility. We can't take ownership for their decisions. We can't take ownership for their choices in how they want to proceed with care. All we can do is educate them properly, which is what we're all great at, right? All we can do is educate them properly and make sure that they're aware of all their options and they're aware of the disease status. Outside of that, we need to avoid internalizing failure and taking that patient's failure on us as we're doing a bad job, right? And that just comes a little bit from healthcare provider guilt, right? We want to help everybody. That's why we went into this profession. That's why we chose a healthcare profession. And so when we internalize that, it can really over time bog us down with guilt and bog us down with frustration of not getting outcomes that we want. The fourth trap that I want to talk about is with your colleagues. And we can compare a lot of these things, right? We can compare who's faster. we can compare, and maybe your office does compare who makes the most production. Maybe they highlight their hygienists who are on the top, which is great because we want to be applauded for good work, right? But what we need to avoid, or what we need to be thinking about, is comparing ourselves to our colleagues. We are all unique individuals with unique characteristics and strengths. And some of us are very type A, and some of us are very type B. And there is nothing wrong with either one of those things. I love personality characteristics and I love learning about them. My PhD is in psychology. And I find it so interesting. If you remember, if you were following along with the podcast, at the beginning of the year this year, we did a whole series on the Enneagram and I interviewed each different type of the Enneagram. And it was just a really fun way to explore all of our personality differences. And that shows up in the workplace. So we need to get away from comparing ourselves to people that will never be like. Maybe you are the superstar hygienist in your office. You are the top producer. You have the prettiest scrubs, the most expensive scrubs. I remember when Figs came out, and that was just like a TikTok social media frenzy, was Figs scrubs. And I remember I was working with students in the prison and all of these students were coming with Figs. And I even caught myself being like, wow, like this is like the thing to have, right? And it's just a trap that we fall into. Comparison is the thief of joy. We cannot compare ourselves to other hygienists. Now, that doesn't mean that growth isn't something we can strive for. We can see another hygienist's strength for something that we want to strive to become, right? I can look at my colleague. I'm just thinking of my colleague, Caitlin. She is a perfectionist and she is so detail oriented. And I'm not. I'm an Aries. I'm a Enneagram 8. I am just like a charge ahead person, like we'll do it and we'll think about the consequences later. That's my type of personality. And so when I look at her, I can look at her and say, I strive to be more detail oriented. I strive to, when facing a problem, think about all the potential options. But what I can't do is say, you are so unprepared, Katie, where I talk down to myself and I turn her strengths into my weaknesses. That is a trap that is going to, again, bog us down. And it's not helpful. When we're talking about strengths in the workplace, we have learned, research shows that focusing on weaknesses really isn't helpful because it's focusing on a piece of yourself that's in the negative context. So focusing on strengths and looking for opportunities for growth is a lot more beneficial for us because it gives us somewhere to go, right? So I want you to be thinking about how you talk to yourself in the laboratory, how you talk to yourself in the workplace. Don't create for yourself this environment of insecurity when it doesn't need to be there. And that's just a trap, again, that we can fall into that will eventually lead to burnout and just a loss of joy, a loss of satisfaction for our careers. The final trap I want to talk about is maybe the trap of chasing credentials and or chasing titles, chasing leadership opportunities just for the sake of the title alone, right? This kind of ties into the last one because sometimes our colleagues are climbing the ladder and getting all of these certificates, right? You're getting myofunctional therapy and you're getting laser certified and you're getting all of these things. But I want you to think about how you're utilizing them. And in your practices, in your niche area, in your patient population, what is the most productive thing that you're using, right? Because what happens is when we start to chase all of these different things, and we don't necessarily have a plan, is that we're so scatterbrained. We start maybe with this passion and you're like, oh, this looks cool, squirrel, and I go and I chase that. And it can be very frustrating. It can be very time consuming. It can be costly. And if you're not smart with it, if you're not directed, or if you don't have a plan for implementation or what it's going to look like, it can actually lead you into having way more duties than you even planned on, or than you even wanted, right? Some of these things are really cool and exciting, but if we don't slow down and really prioritize the titles and the certifications and the different things that we want to specialize in, it can kind of confuse us. It makes me think of the phrase that goes, you're a jack of all trades, but a master of none, right? And so we can kind of think of like credentialing as kind of like that. So we have a lot of different skills, but we may not have mastered one specific skill that we want to focus on. This again just leads to burnout. It leads to confusion and busy work, and it can really confuse us of where we want to direct our time and energy. So those are the 5 traps that I wanted to present to you to open the conversation about where we find our career satisfaction and things that prevent us from having career satisfaction. So for the next week, I want you to kind of be thinking about those things. Bring it to the forefront of your mind and think about ways that these 5 traps might impact your daily work. And when we come back next Friday with a new episode, we're going to talk about those 5 different topics and how to redefine them for professional success. And I think you'll really find some good ideas of how we can reframe or rethink what success looks like for us. I look forward to seeing you next Friday and talking about this. I will see you on the next episode, and I will see you at ADHA in Long Beach. If you're going to be there, please reach out. I can't wait to meet some of you in person, and I look forward to the travel. I'm so excited. So I will see you on the next episode. Bye, guys.